will get an answer to these strange out of the box questions. That to me easily makes it. Also, I just think that despite it being gory, it's still a kid series. Like AOT is objectively for kids. It's a shonen still, so kids can watch AOT. It's in a kids magazine. We can make our it's still for kids. It's on.
That's a rough characterization of what it. I hear what you're
No, no,
saying.
no, 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 no. So the point I'm making is that it's still appropriate for kids to watch. Like it still is. Like even though it's violent, it's on the higher end, but it's still kids can still watch it.
You're talking about like 12. You're talking like 12.
Yeah, like it's that's
Older
a
kids.
it's a target demographic, right? And so
we're just gonna start it, and then we'll debate each pick per usual. So we'll just get into the meat of everything. Top 10 anime to show casuals. And since we don't have a guest, does anybody want to go first?
Death Note not on this list?
Random said it first, so Random, go ahead.
My fault.
What is number one? We're starting from number one, obviously.
I think Demon Slayer is the perfect starter anime for any anime casuals. In fact, it's the one that I recommend to anybody who's looking at an anime. It has a story that is not too complicated, a hero that you can like. The action's great. Now, is it perfect in terms of like if you're looking for romance? No, but even the side characters are great. It's not that long, so somebody will not be intimidated by the length. And obviously, the one thing that really sells Demon Slayer is its animation. Like you want to talk about, like it's just, if you really think about it, it's like the perfect starter pack to get somebody into it. Because after you watch Demon Slayer and people are like, "Oh, is this it?" And that's when you can throw them like a Naruto, or you can throw them a One Piece. There's something that is longer, a better story, better characters. But I just think people will look at a One Piece or something like that, or maybe if somebody's not looking for such an in-depth story, like I think it's just really, really good. And the other than animation, Demon Slayer it's like a B plus in my opinion, and especially in the anime adaptation, it's the perfect anime for casuals. It's the perfect one.
So I disagree. And I actually glad Santo said something. Because the number one anime that I recommend is always Death Note.
100%.
It is always Death Note. And I think my biggest thing is the way how I would explain it is Death Note doesn't need the crazy animation. Because that could potentially, I'm not going to say Demon Slayer shouldn't make the list, by the way, but I'm arguing in for Death Note. Death Note doesn't need that crazy animation, and it won't set an expectation that every anime is going to have this disgusting animation. All it needs is that story. And it's such a unique story being told that immediately someone's going to watch anime and realize that this is not just a kid's cartoon. No, this is going to make you think. This is going to make you feel things that you haven't felt before when it comes to like seeing what Light Yagami does and the moral questions on what it means to be a good guy and what it means to have the life of criminals in your hands. This is an anime that is not too long, doesn't rely on crazy animation, doesn't rely on crazy fights. It has a unique plot, amazing characters, and a theme that will resonate with any person who watches it. I think Death Note is the number one anime that I always recommend casuals.
And I mean, I don't want to, but I would second that. I think it has a story to where the viewer would instantly put themselves in. Like, what would I do if I had a Death Note? How would I act? And also, one thing that, from my experience suggesting anime to people, there's something about a anime where the main character you are not rooting for, or you almost like you hate him, but it's not like a turn off to like to unplug from the anime. Like, Light is not a good guy. Like, but you put yourself in that, like, would I make these choices? Would I try to become God? Like, how would I how would I handle my morality towards this anime? And also, it's not long, which is one of the things. Especially when I suggest anime, I try to give them animes that is completely finished. Demon Slayer is still ongoing, and it's extensive. For in my opinion, for a casual fan, I think Death Note is just what two seasons, and you're in and you're out. That's why I have it number one.
Can I go before you tie? One of the biggest stigma about anime for people that know nothing about anime is that it's for kids. Is that like it's not adult content, that like it's not for people of certain ages. And I have a success story right here. Shar, after margarita night, we had 13 margaritas, hungover. Finally, for years, been trying to get into anime. I put on AOT. AOT, one of the best stories, one of the best fictional stories. The first episode gets you into the characters, the shock value. It makes you hooked on like, oh, Aaron just lost a family member. Like you not even want to see what goes through it. And the journey of AOT from the beginning, it hooks in that like adult audience that like likes those serious stories. Demon Slayer would probably be like top 3 to me because of the visuals, because I was easy to follow. But AOT, because of the story, also decent animation. The first episode, the shock value of it, and the way it draws you in immediately. AOT, and as you see, like Shar, now she's watched more anime than a lot of people in the chat, and that's only been like what 2 years. So
I completely agree, Lonnie. I feel like sometimes when people talk about starter anime, we act like we're recommending anime to like dodo birds. Like that's always too complicated. I'm like, bro, we're not talking to like dumbasses or something. Like these people are competent. They can comprehend a story. You know what I'm saying? Even if AOT is a complex story. One, I think AOT, I agree with Lonnie, has one of the best hooks that I've ever seen in anime and manga. One of the best hooks. I think another thing that a story can give you is questions. If your audience is asking questions, like I think just straight up, where are these walls and why are there giant naked people trying to eat us? That is that is something that in my experience of recommending anime people, they're always so confused that they want to learn more because AOT gives you a promise that you will get an answer to these strange out of the box questions. That to me easily makes it. And also, I just think that despite it being gory, it's still a kid series. Like AOT is objectively for kids. It's a shonen still. So kids can watch AOT. It's in a kids magazine. We can make our it's still for kids.
That's a rough characterization of what it. I hear what you're saying.
No. So the point I'm making is that it's still appropriate for kids to watch. Like it still is. Like even though it's violent, it's on the higher end, but it's still kids can still watch it.
You're talking about like 12. You're talking like 12.
Yeah, like that's a target demographic, right? And so, people of multiple age demographics can watch it. Has amazing hook, gives you great promises of what the mystery is of the story, and I just the concept is crazy. So I think AOT is either that or My Hero, but
people know that I'm the love of AOT, favorite series of all time, of course. The reason why I wouldn't put AOT over Death Note at the end of the day is because I low-key disagree with the notion that I'm not saying everybody's dumb, but not everybody wants to watch a series and think too deeply about what they're watching. And I think for the most part, of course, Attack on Titan is that type of series, like we all know this. And also it's much longer. And of course, there's an animation change. And I'm being nitpicky for a reason. Because, I mean, we're talking about the number one spot. Because although I think AOT is great, ultimately, when I do understand these things for a first-time anime, I don't think this is the first thing I'm going to recommend someone, especially if I don't know their taste and I can't guarantee they're going to like it. Because I've heard people complain, dumb reasons, but complain nonetheless about AOT. Other than the ending, which people don't like, I haven't heard people really complain about Death Note like that. I think it's just such an easy anime to get into.
But I guess my thing is like,
oh, go ahead.
I might as well say super quick. My thing is this though, Riddle, like people, first one, you don't need to think deeply to understand AOT. Like I just think the straight up mystery of it is interesting enough for you to be like, oh, I want to see them fight these giant monsters trying to eat them. Very simple. Like you don't need to have it. You don't need to have this insane media literacy to enjoy Attack on Titan. I think it's just that good of a story. Most stories people don't fully understand, but from the basics of the concept, people can enjoy it still. So I just think that people can enjoy it, but also people are smarter than we give them credit for. Like, I don't think that getting a, I get it, you know what I'm saying? I get it. Some people could be, I don't know. I'm saying more so from the perspective of, is a person smart enough or understand, like, hey, these giant titans try to eat you. Don't you want to see how they kill them? Like, come on, they're not that stupid. They're like, oh wow, I don't know what's going on. It's like, come on, bro. It's a story about a kid wanting to join the military to free his race of people from Titan eaters, giant monsters. That's simple, man.
Never mind. I can wait.
No, let Random go. You haven't gone yet.
Yeah, go ahead, Random.
So
actually, you did go. You started.
Yeah, so that's why I was going to say Miles, if you had, because he's the only one that's.
Well, I was going to ask, what did you pick, Random? So my vote doesn't matter, so I want to make it matter. What'd you pick? I picked Demon Slayer.
I mean, it does matter because 2 people pick Death Note, 2 people pick Attack on Titan, and 1 person pick.
Yeah, but I don't want to. If I put a 1, then I'm gonna just pick. Out of all you said, which one is lowest on my list? I'm going with Death Note. That was the lowest on my list, so I'll be picking Death Note.
All right, Death Note.
So real to kind of counter what you guys are saying about Attack on Titan, real quick. My only reason I picked it's not about it saying the person's not dumb or anything like that. Like, we're going off the premise that Jason is like, hey, I'm thinking about getting into anime. The only reason I picked Demon Slayer is, it's like, if you go to a potluck, this is like the one dish that, like, you think everybody would like. Because at one point, I understand that you don't have to be a brainiac to understand Attack on Titan, but at some point the story does get very complex. I think Demon Slayer is just, in terms of the Marlians, how does the Titan fluid, like all that stuff, because those are things that I think, I'm just saying, when you look at Demon Slayer, the only thing I'll tell somebody about Demon Slayer, don't expect this level of animation with everybody, right? But because I said, this is what I anticipate when somebody watches Demon Slayer. Oh, I love Demon Slayer. How can I?
Yeah, stop talking random. $5 super chat by Jaden. He's cooking out here. MFers need to grow up, watch/read One Piece, baby. Always pushing the agenda. Now trolling aside, solo leveling, not for number 1, but in general. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if it makes the list. But shout out Jaden, man. Already 4 super chats in. 1 more. We're gonna drop the link after the segment, though.
Jaden, that was my number 1. I had solo leveling. They Attack on Titan and Death Note made my list, but mine's is more so in order of like ease of watch. I just think solo leveling is the easiest watch out of all the ones we mentioned here. There's no simpler story than no story. It's mainly combat driven. So at a baseline, it's gonna hook you in by you being able to see cool fights, aura every single episode, good soundtrack. It has some really cool side characters and things like that. And it what's the word I'm looking for? It dwindles with the idea of mystery, trying to kind of pull you along. It creates suspense when it needs to. I just think it's the easiest watch out of pretty much any anime.
On my list, solo was number 2. I put Demon Slayer number 1. Solo was number 2. I just think because you get like to finish my point real quick, and then I'll just be quiet. You get great characters, great fights, a good enough story. Hopefully they fix the final bit. I understand that it's not done, but solo's not done either. But we're willing. Miles is willing to put it up as the number 1, and I just think it's the perfect one for everything. Because after that, it's like, what I do is like, okay, I really like this about Demon Slayer. If you really liked this, or you want to know more story or more mystery, then I send them in different directions depending on what part of Demon Slayer that they liked. So I can send them in a One Piece direction. I can send them in a Attack on Titan direction. I could send them in this direction, or even a slice of life direction, because I think Demon Slayer is just basically the perfect intro mix to everything, whether it's comedy, love, action, animation, story. It's the perfect way.
I do think there's something to be said, and I'm gonna say this real quick, and Lonnie, you can cook with what Santo said earlier. A series that is finished, I think you can gain so much more from that. And at the end of the day, I mean, Soul Loving is obviously, it's not even close to being finished. And then Demon Slayer is still not finished, almost finished. It's almost there. So I think like getting the full product and being able to digest it, I think will help people kind of figure out what their feelings are about it. So I do think that it's a part of the equation for me at the very least.
So I do feel like perception does matter in terms of like, we're talking about casuals. We're thinking about people that know like nothing about. I'm thinking about someone that knows absolutely nothing about anime except for like, oh yeah, Dragon Ball Z. So when we talk about like the most popular and like biggest shows in media, like we think of Game of Thrones, we think of Sopranos, Chernobyl, Billions, things like that. And those all have serious tones with a bit of mystery, and they do have some complex themes. Like they highlight politics, politics, morals, things of that nature. And that's why AOT popped the way it did around that time. It was competing with shows like Game of Thrones and Billions and stuff like that because of all the themes that it touched on, and it became there was anime, and then like because when we talk about anime space, they're like, oh, anime like Naruto, Bleach, but then like they always put Dragon Ball Z in a different category. They did the same thing with AOT because of all the themes that it touched and the serious tone it had. So that's why I would say AOT, because a lot of people, because of the art style, I think it helped a little bit too. AOT was a lot of ways bigger than the anime space, and that's why it's also perceived differently. So like that's why I'd say like to a casual that knows nothing about anime, I would say AOT. They'll see like, oh, this is like mature themes. They cover a lot of different topics. I think Soul Leveling would probably be third for me though.
I could argue that for Demon Slayer though. Once what's name cuts.
Well, let's not argue number one anymore because number one already won.
Number one is Death Note.
No,
I'm arguing for number two.
Yeah. All right. So now we're at number two. Lonnie said Attack on Titan. Random is debating Demon Slayer. Let's get everybody's pick before we get
AOT.
Get in it. So Ty got AOT. Santo, what do you got?
Man, I got Haikyuu. In terms of popularity, in terms of a simple storyline, in terms of like Miles said, and I really appreciate that he said that, ease of watch, hype moments, like Miles said as well, soundtrack, and something that a lot of people can get into because I'm playing averages at this point. A lot of people like sports. I'm gonna go Haikyuu. I think it has a great art style, great animation. Characters are easy to follow. We know who's the underdog. We know who's the skilled one. We know who's the rival. What we have to overcome. Like it's pretty straightforward. So I got Haikyuu.
Once again, I could use Demon Slayer.
At the end of the day, I'm sorry for Haiku. Like sports anime is a niche style of anime. Like yes, Haiku is popular, but in terms of like the overall anime space, it's still like not as high as any of the other ones on the list because sports anime is a niche anime. Because a lot of people are like,
why not?
I'm not saying that it doesn't deserve to be on the list, but I'm saying compared to Demon Slayer, Solo Leveling, like it had in terms of a following, Haikyuu being, I would just everything else would just.
I don't see why following matters when we're just trying to get a brand new watcher who knows nothing about anime to watch anime. Like,
yeah, I'm not.
If people can resonate with sports, I think sports is the perfect thing to kind of hook them in. I don't agree. I don't have a Haikyuu next. I have One Punch Man. I think comedy is the easiest thing to unite people, bring them forward. If you can make them laugh, you can keep them around. And I think One Punch Man is hilarious. Added to that, it also does have a story. It has great antagonistic characters in it, great characters in general. Characters like Moomin Rider, hilarious. King, hilarious. Once again, easy ass watch. You can get off work, turn on One Punch Man. You don't have to think too hard. Watch it, laugh a little bit, see some cool fights and animation, hop right out. Yeah.
Real quick, right? Go ahead. So I was really thinking about this because I don't have a ranking, but I have a bunch of anime that's on the list. And I was like, what would be that anime? And there's some good ones that I think haven't been mentioned yet. I won't speak about them. Haikyuu's on my list, not number two. One Punch Man I was thinking about. I just think that just not enough of it. I guess that one's weird. I was considering it on my list because I agree with every point you made. I just think it needs more content. That's my biggest thing. It just needs more content. Ultimately, I'm gonna agree with Random. I think it's Demon Slayer. So even though there's other arguments that I do think can be made, but I think the Death Note, it has like everything to kind of get integrated on a style of story you never would have expected and very easy to understand. I think Demon Slayer just shocks people to the point with like, what the hell am I watching? In the sense that this is beautiful stuff that I'm watching.
I have a question. Do y'all think ALT is like a harder watch? And if so, why?
I think the world is more complex in ALT than it is Demon Slayer.
Why is that a bad thing? That's more.
No,
It's not bad.
it's
He's saying like a harder, like it's harder to. You're saying it's like harder to follow.
Stop talking, Ty. $5 super chat. Just wanted to support. Does Boondocks count as a anime?
I say yes because Madhouse animated the second season. I say yes.
It's 2025. We do what we want. It's anime.
But Ty, the only reason I think while you do
let Ty finish what he was saying before.
Oh my bad.
I was basically done because I was just asking what makes it a harder watch. Because I have points where I think it's easy watch, like an easier watch than many other anime. But
like I'll say this. Obviously the hook for Attack on Titan is better, but at one point you just leave Paradise and you go to Marley. I think a lot of people will be twisted off by that. They still don't understand when you get the Ymir backstory. All that stuff is just a lot. It just because it doesn't make it harder, but you remember you're trying to get somebody in there.
That's 3 seasons in. They're already in.
Yeah,
but,
and that's what I was gonna say. So,
but just because you're in, if you do a big tone shift like that, if we're watching, I understand. But remember, we're talking about somebody who's in. Just because it's, I'm not saying being complex is a bad thing. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just thinking the fact that it's just, I think Demon Slayer is just a completely easier watch from start to finish. There's no big tonal change in terms of all of a sudden we're not in China following some new people we've never seen before. Like Demon Slayer just gives you a very
like 2 episodes and then switch back to the main characters.
I have Attack on Titan and Demon Slayer on my list, but I actually have Demon Slayer at 9, Attack on Titan at 10. My only separator between the two, for me, when I thought getting the casual involved, I just thought the blood and gore. None of my shows I have above those have like any, at least humanoid blood and gore, right? Whereas Attack on Titan, it can get, even from the beginning, it can get very, very brutal with how it portrays these Titans and what they do. Destroying cities, biting people in half, people getting killed in front of their loved one, things like that. That was the only separator for me. I don't agree with the tonal shift part of the story because I think the story does a good job of holding your hand and revealing those things slowly to you as the story progresses. It's not like season 1, we're focused on attacking the Titans. Season 2, we're at Marley having political speeches. It's not really a knee-jerk type of shift. I just think the blood and gore is just the major separator for me.
I wasn't trying to say it's a knee-jerk, but it's just like we can all answer the question. Which we all understand that Attack on Titan has a better story than Demon Slayer. We all understand, but also Attack on Titan has a more complex story than Demon Slayer.
That too.
And once again, Lonnie, I know you keep making this thing. It's not I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm just saying, like, if we're talking about somebody who's completely new, that could be a turnoff just because it is. Like, I understand that, but even your other point about saying that AOT transcended, Demon Slayer transcended too. Demon Slayer was yes.
To be fair, until the tonal shift of Attack on Titan, isn't the most the point of the story just to find the basement? I think that's simple.
No, I agree, but I agree with you. But look, maybe I'm just not explaining it right. But like, this is why I look at Demon Slayer and I see everything I say. I'm like, Demon Slayer did that too. Demon Slayer transcended the industry. Demon Slayer got great story. Demon Slayer got all these things. That's why I fight for it the way I do. And Attack on Titan is on mine. It's lower on my list. Like somebody said, Spy Family. Spy Family is on my list too. But I'm probably the one of the few who has, I don't know, I can't speak for you, Santo, but I have a few romances on my list also. Just depending on the person and what they like to watch. just because it's not as dark or whatever. But Demon Slayer, that's why I say it's like the perfect starter anime because it can appeal to more people than Attack on Titan can. That's why I think Demon Slayer deserves to be higher on the list than Attack on Titan.
The reason for me, at least for me, the reason I put it not as high on for the casual audience, I mean, based on everybody's answers, we're suggesting battle shonens. People want to see fights, people want to see moments, people want to see hype. AOT has a great hook. It really does. Now, for the casual audience, I mean, we just saw that Solo Leveling got 3,000 dislikes because Sun Jin Woo was crying. Like I attribute that for a lot of casual viewers. I think Attack on Titan is a great story. I'm not saying people are dumb, but people are really watching it for that hook. I think it gets to a point where there's a lot of conversation happening and a lot of world building. That casual fan that came in for that hook kind of is like, okay, it slowed down a bit.
At what part?
Huh?
Okay, so I wanted to. I asked that question.
I mean, he's right. In between I think it's between season 2 and season 3, when it comes down to Aaron, when he kind of goes to that phase where he doesn't know who he is, and he kind of goes through that phase where he's like, "What am I supposed to do?" It's when Kenny shows up. At that point, and Santo, you said specifically. What did you say specifically? You said
People come in for the hook and then it slows down.
Wait, when Kenny shows up, so like
Season 3?
the most viral moments of AOT that like
I was gonna agree with you.
I'm referring to like the more actiony stuff.
There you go. Y'all are losing me. I'm gonna let you go, Ty, but y'all are losing me because I would feel like by season 3, I'm pretty confident that I'm confident they like anime at that. Like they like at least Attack on Titan at that point if they're 3 seasons in. Like the season 1 stuff is very casual, friendly stuff. Like
not only that is that there's this I don't. People don't just come for action.
I was just going based on all the answers that we brought.
No, I got you. I got you.
To follow a certain pattern.
Attack on Titan is as popular as it is because Isayama is good at writing emotional resonance. That's what it is. He writes things that resonate emotionally with the audience. That is. Now you do all your storytelling through action. And action is great. People love it, but people love Attack on Titan because the characters, because the story, because of the tension, the stakes. Like that's why people love the story and stick to it. That is consistent throughout the entirety of the series. I don't think people are gonna say when they see Aaron mom get eaten and they're expecting, all right, he's gonna be prepared to fight them in the next episode or like that. I mean, now Bro told him kick the wall down episode 4, by the way, to come back. They do a time skip, so I just feel like the momentum of the story is consistent, like the rise is consistent. So I just don't agree with that idea. Now to go to, I asked the question I want to answer everybody. So to Miles' point about the gore, that's reasonable. I get that. So I'm with you on that from the standpoint of it because of the gore. So I can't, that's situation by situation. And to random, so I know what you're saying. ALT is more nuanced. There's more nuance with a lot of the characters.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, there is more nuance. But I think, at least for me, a lot of times what keeps people invested in stories, if you do have an interesting conflict, that's what keeps people invested. How will this conflict be resolved? Right? Like, there's a lot of nuance in Mark and Omni-Man's relationship. Since we talk about Invincible later, people love that dynamic because of the nuance in it. People, again, them fighting and things like that was crazy. But seeing how Mark reacted to seeing the conflicted feelings, that nuance in their dynamic is why people are so invested in it. Like that, it's that. You feel me? Like I like the slaughter and killing was cool, but that's what we were connected because there's emotional connection with the characters, and I think AOT has that throughout the entire series. So I just don't think that moments where there's not as much fighting, people will be disinterested.
That word casual perspective. You guys, the casual fan is more attracted to action type fights versus
Why?
No, I'm asking a question. Do you think they go with that over story and depth of character?
Not
Or the
necessarily.
casual.
It depends.
It depends
Because
on the
I think that's where the disconnect is.
You know what it is?
Here's why. Okay, go ahead.
My bad, Santo. But reason why I'm saying, I think in general, because we think in general, I say no is because series like the Naruto's and One Piece are so popular. That tells me that because you can go to plenty of just power fantasies, they're not as popular as the greats. I don't think it's coincidence because again, you can get more casual people in, right? If there's this archetype of story that will not only garner other fans but just the casual fans, because there are more casual fans than just diehard anime fans. Then I think these series be more popular than the AOTs, the Naruto, etc. And they're not because I just think those stories are just better. You feel me? So I don't think that most people started off as casual. Most of the people who got into Naruto were casuals.
Also,
But we
it was
still
like,
look
especially
higher.
in the early 2010s, it was really common to hear, "Oh, I don't watch anime, but I watch AOT." What, like that was
Or
a very
Naruto
common
or
thing.
you know
And
what
like
I'm
when we
saying?
talk and like moving forward after we decide, I don't think we should be talking about things that happen like season 3, 4, or 5. Because if a casual person watches 20 episodes or 30 episodes or 40 episodes, at that point they like it. So like saying something that happens at the end of the series makes no sense because they already got hooked off of the first, second, or third season.
I mean that's very subjective because we've had a lot of shows that we watched and we're like 40 episodes in. I'm just gonna power through. Tai Gintama. He's 300 episodes
We're
in.
talking about casuals. So, like a casual's gonna watch like 50 or 60 episodes. AOT be like, I don't like anime anymore.
Yeah.
I mean that's possible. I do think there's a certain thing here, and I do think that when it comes down to like action versus story, like if you come down to like the very basics of it, if you had to remove one thing and keep the other, then for sure story, because there's something to resonate with. But I think that's an unfair way to look at it. There needs to be a threshold for both. And I do think if both meet the threshold for a action heavy series with a threshold of a good enough story to keep people attracted, and then a heavy story driven, complex, more nuanced story with a threshold of action, I think the one with action will probably win more often than not. My thing is with this is that you don't have to sell me on Attack on Titan. I already know it's great. I already know it's peak. I already know all that stuff. My thing is, what elements could not get the proper appreciation? Not understanding that complex story and the nuances could not allow them to appreciate it as something as much, because it's a comparison thing, as much as a Demon Slayer. And not even like the controversy at the ending of Attack on Titan, that I mean, I think we all, for the most part, think that criticism was ridiculous, but it was loud. It was disgusting. It was weird. So those controversial moments could also play a bad taste on the casual person's viewing experience.
I could
I
counter
think
that.
Attack on Titan should make the list. Don't get me wrong, but I'm also comparing it to other elements that can provide a lot for an anime fan in comparison to Attack on Titan. And that's why I said Demon Slayer, because there's no getting around. What you're watching is a beautiful watch. It's kind of like Arcane. It's just a beautiful experience. That experience is going to be amazing to see. And you could just tell people, hey, watch this. This thing looks great. It's simple as that. You don't have to have a bigger conversation beyond that. So,
all right. Oh, last point,
Slayer.
Riddell, and then like we gotta move on. Well, we gotta go through this.
No,
list
I'm
'cause
with you. We're
40 minutes in.
in.
Last point. The fact that
damn.
you said the thing at the end, that controversy, the fact that it was such a big conversation, people that never didn't watch anime wanted to know, what did Eren do? What did Eren do? So like that big viral controversial thing that brings in that casual audience,
But
Real?
for a bad reason.
but it still brings them in.
Nah,
They
good
want to
reason.
see.
So we're not talking about.
But that wouldn't be enough to
And then
keep
when they
them,
hear
though.
about it, they were like, "Oh, why did he come to the decision?" They want to watch AOT to see what they.
Like I'm with Santo. That doesn't mean that person will stay. If you know at the end of the story this
We're
guy
talking about
murders billions of people, like that's not going to get the guy to stay.
I don't know anybody
We're not
that
talking about what gets them to stay. It's what casuals were.
I don't know anybody that I got from the
brings
AOT.
casuals in. That's how the world works.
Okay, so all right, I just want to be for how I'm doing the list. I'm giving people
I'm
suggestions
doing it different.
they will love and continue being an anime fan.
I agree. AOT.
Yeah, and AOT.
AOT
every time.
AOT is like the top three
Every time
anime
I first
anyway.
went onto
It's like going in
AOT.
for the bad reasons. They're gonna end up watching a top 3 anime. Like what?
Yeah, I would say I'd never put someone on AOT and like I'm done with anime. I've never experienced that. Now maybe
for the bad reasons.
That's not the point, though.
Nobody's being that extreme.
I'm saying that every time I put someone on the AOT, they like, yo, give me something else because that's what's key.
Maybe I'm
Exactly.
different because I know if I recommend AOT to one of the people I'm very close with, they will not watch anime. They will not.
Oh, well.
Tell them to buck up. I don't know what to
I
say.
don't know.
But that's the entire point. Tell him to.
That's the
I
entire
don't have to tell him with.
I don't have to
with
tell him
other
to do
anime.
I've never had that experience, random.
I never had that.
I got you, but like, look, not like for instance, like obviously.
Oh, no. We've been talking about this.
Oh
too.
yeah, we have. Listen,
gotta
listen,
44 minutes in, we're on number 2.
No,
Yeah,
we
we
got
are.
a
That's
lot of
crazy.
crazy topics. So for the next like couple spots, let's speed run that through because I do want to get to our other.